Well, there would still be controls there.
Oh, so you put a cap on the number of people coming in?
Well, it would be decided on a case-by-case basis in the same way...
Surely you have to at some point say...
If you ask me a question, do you want to just let me finish?
Just a straight answer. Would we put a cap on numbers?
I wouldn't, no.
Right.
This isn't an open borders policy.
Sounds like it.
Well, except the numbers, of course, under previous Conservative...
Critics say Labour is unclear on border control and unlikely to stop small boat crossings. Supporters argue safe routes reduce illegal migration, while opponents say the UK cannot keep taking large numbers. The debate ultimately comes down to limits and sustainability. British politics like this one. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the British I Believe It, or not. Over 98% of viewers watch our content without hitting the follow button. Subscribing is completely free.
If we want to tackle small boat crossings, etc., we need to be offering that safe and legal route and then massively speed up the processing within the Home Office. The backlogs are still too long, taking far too long. That is costing money that we can ill afford to absorb. The only way to tackle it, whether you are sympathetic or anti the plight of asylum seekers and refugees, if you're serious about getting the numbers down, you need the safe and legal routes. We don't yet have them.
Harriet?
Illegal immigration is a massive issue across the world. We've seen it, we've discussed it. I've discussed it here with you before, and we've been discussing it for many years. The key thing that we need, and I think which Donald Trump, President Trump was demonstrating there, is the need of a deterrent, because a deterrent is one way in which we can ensure that people are less likely to take their life into their own hands in many cases, to cross the channel or cross into other countries. We need to make sure that people know that if they come to the UK or any other country, but in our case the UK illegally, they will not be able to stay if they do not have a right to be here. If they've come here illegally, they will not be able to stay, full stop, because we need to stop the illegal trade in humans across the channel, across the rest of the world, and a deterrent is the key way we can do that.
Is that the way to go?
It doesn't work, because if you look at it like this, the ultimate deterrent really is death, isn't it? People are risking their lives to cross the channel.
Although many of them do still take that huge risk.
Well, that's exactly my point. And people are still doing that. And that's because the push factors that are causing people to make those journeys, fleeing war, persecution, poverty, are still in place. So what we need, Naomi is absolutely right, we need safe and legal routes. That's what all charities and experts are calling for, and we need to speed up processing
and then when they're processed, if they pass the assessment and they are a legitimate refugee that requires asylum, they stay, and if they don't and they are an illegal immigrant, then they are sent home.
And the vast majority are legitimate.
Camilla?
When we have safe and legal routes, do we put any cap on the numbers of people that we can accept into the UK? Just in terms of the survival of the infrastructure of the UK, how many schools we have, how many doctors and dentists we have, how many hospitals, how many houses we have, not least with burgeoning waiting lists of people already on lists for social housing. So how do we control the numbers if we have safe and legal routes, out of interest?
Well, there would still be controls there.
Oh, so you put a cap on the number of people coming in?
Well, it would be decided on a case-by-case basis in the same way...
Surely you have to at some point say...
If you ask me a question, do you want to just let me finish?
Just a straight answer. Would we put a cap on numbers?
I wouldn't, no.
Right, so...
But what I'm talking about with safe and legal routes, this isn't an open borders policy.
Sounds like it.
Well, except the numbers, of course, under previous Conservative governments were a good one.
Under
how many more should we have?
For Ukrainians?
Yeah, no, so there were caps,
for example, and we know
so that's an example.
Don't interrupt.
Try
not to cross over each other, Nadia.
We know that safe and legal routes work because Ukrainians aren't crossing the channel, are they? Because they have safe and legal routes to get here.
There was a cap on the numbers.
Hang on.
I am saying that we should extend those safe and legal routes to other people who are desperate and who are risking their lives.
And I am
that is how we stop people risking their lives on the channel.
And through foreign aid, and through tackling climate change.
I can see that you're finding this very amusing.
Mass displacement of people. The very people that often say they don't want immigration, who are concerned about particularly what they call illegal immigration, are often the very same people who call for foreign aid cuts, who don't want to tackle the climate crisis that we've got in front of us. All the reasons that are causing the huge mass displacement of people and an increasing number because of climate change.
Sorry, I'm not
asking
a complicated question. I totally understand the argument for
Which bit
safe
don't you get?
and legal routes. The bit I don't get is your inability to give me an answer to whether there should be a cap. When we said we would take Ukrainians, we put a cap on it. When we said we would take people from Hong Kong, we put a cap on it. I asked you whether you would put a cap on numbers, purely because if you have other safe and legal routes, and we feel that the infrastructure of this country might suffer, and not least if people are already waiting on housing lists, that they will be bumped down them if we let everybody into this country.
Well, hang on, Camilla. There's one question for you on safe and legal routes. Do you think if there were more safe and legal routes, there would be fewer people trying to cross the channel?
Yeah.
The discussion around small boat crossings and illegal immigration continues to divide opinion, and this debate perfectly captures the core tension in British politics today. On one side, there is the argument for expanding safe and legal routes, speeding up asylum processing, and addressing the root causes of migration. On the other, there is a strong emphasis on deterrence, border control, and protecting national infrastructure. Those calling for safe and legal routes argue that without them, desperate people will continue risking their lives crossing the channel. The point raised is simple. If Ukrainians were given safe and legal access, they didn't need to board small boats. So why not apply that model more broadly? The argument suggests that when legal pathways exist, irregular crossings naturally decline. Supporters also stress that processing delays at the Home Office create backlogs that cost taxpayers money and leave asylum seekers in limbo for years. Faster decisions, they say, would allow genuine refugees to integrate quickly and those without valid claims to be returned efficiently. However, the counter-argument focuses heavily on deterrence. The belief here is that unless the UK makes it absolutely clear that illegal entry will not lead to settlement, the numbers will not fall. The logic is that if crossing the channel still results in being allowed to stay, even temporarily, the incentive remains. From this perspective, strong border enforcement is not about lacking compassion, but about breaking the business model of people smugglers. The idea of a clear and firm consequence, removal if you have no legal right to remain, is seen as essential. A key flashpoint in the debate is the issue of a cap. If safe and legal routes are expanded, should there be a numerical limit? Critics argue that without a cap, there is no accountability. Governments set targets for a reason: to measure success and manage infrastructure. Schools, housing, hospitals, and public services already face pressure. If migration flows increase without limits, how does the government ensure communities can cope? This is where public concern often intensifies. Many voters are not necessarily opposed to refugees, but they worry about capacity. On the other hand, opponents of caps argue that asylum is not something that can be neatly limited by an annual target. Refugee status is determined case by case, based on international law. They warn that setting arbitrary numbers could undermine humanitarian obligations. The deeper issue, they suggest, lies in global instability, war, persecution, poverty, and increasingly climate-related displacement. Unless those push factors are addressed, people will continue to move. Another controversial element raised in the debate is sovereignty and the role of international courts. Should Britain ever ignore international rulings if they conflict with domestic border control goals? Some argue that national sovereignty must come first and that the UK must ultimately decide who enters and stays. Others caution that disregarding legal obligations could damage Britain's global standing and undermine the rule of law. The Rwanda scheme was mentioned as a previous attempt at deterrence, though it never fully materialized. That highlights another challenge. Policy announcements are one thing, implementation is another. Immigration policy often becomes politically symbolic, but practical enforcement is complex, expensive, and legally contested. Ultimately, this debate reflects a broader struggle between compassion and control, though many would argue both are necessary. The British public tends to show strong support for those clearly fleeing war, as seen with Ukraine, but also expresses frustration when migration appears unmanaged. The real policy challenge is designing a system that is humane, efficient, enforceable, and publicly credible at the same time. Whether through safe and legal routes, stronger deterrence, or a mix of both, what is clear is that half measures and political slogans are not enough. The issue demands clarity, honesty about trade-offs, and a workable plan that restores confidence in the system. If you want, I can also make this more punchy and YouTube style, or more neutral and analytical.